Let's do the.
Hello and welcome to an evening with comrades. A little
gas.
later than usual. Damn you, daylight savings. We need the one universal time all across the world. But luckily,
In people's
joining us
time.
tonight, we have Dip Dap.
Yeah.
We also have with us Theo.
Hi,
And we also have
I'm
with us.
wanted for 1,800 counts of chewing gum.
We also have.
I am wanted for many war crimes in Africa.
We also have with us Pac-Man. Welcome, Pac-Man.
Greetings and salutations, terrestrial leftists. How goes it?
And I will be your host, TK Jones. And let's jump right into it. Although the media might be saying that things are dying down, we have a few more incidents cropping up about Iran, because tonight is our Iran special. And we start with a couple of news items wherein in the Strait of Hormuz, I hope I'm saying that right.
Hormuz.
In the Strait of Hormuz, a Russian warship came within, I'm sorry to use imperial, 60 yards of a US warship before then turning away. So it was sailing aggressively at it. There's also video footage being released of a missile being launched at the Ukrainian airplane. So it was shot down.
I
And
can tell you exactly what happened there.
yes, could you fill us in on that, Theo?
Well, this obviously is speculation, but if you look at the circumstances, it's pretty clear that's what happened. You know, Iran is expecting United States strike fighters and bombers to, well, come in and fucking glass the country, you know, as the US is historically known to do. Now, on radar, alright, the silhouette of kind of
Plane.
passenger plane that was flown looks vaguely like that. So what it was that military personnel sitting in SAM sites got a little antsy, saw that passenger plane on their radar, and was scared that it was a US bomber, and shot it down.
Yeah,
Is
I mean, this is
Iran,
not new.
refusing to release the black box.
Oh yeah, they're not doing it. They didn't do it. They swear they didn't do it. Like, look, this is a common
video.
issue. We saw the same thing. We saw the same thing during the South Korean incident in the 1980s, and it's with the Soviet Union, and it's very much the same sort of circumstance. And I would actually bet that it's a similar circumstance. And the reason I say that is that anyone who doesn't think that there are high-level surveillance and tactical assets of the United States over Iran right now is an absolute idiot. I'd almost guarantee that the United States has some form of stealth aircraft overflying Iran at this time. They haven't revealed its identity at the time.
There is a propaganda video of about, I think it's 50 US stealth fighters all taking off at the same time and headed for Iran, according to the video.
While I sort of
Stealth
find that a bit-
fighters can't go high enough to like subvert radar.
Okay.
No, not
So-
really. They sort of show up. Like the best way I can describe it is that like you've got stealth drones. You've seen the stealth drones that they can launch from aircraft carriers. Those sort of triangle-looking things. I can't remember exactly what they're called. My guess is that the United States has plenty of stealth surveillance assets over Iran at this time. Possibly even stealth strike aircraft on standby. That being, of course, B2s or some other form. We've seen a lot of movement from B2s in recent months, like in terms of deployments, and they have global reach. So I think what we saw here is that US surveillance activity and US aerial activity in the Strait of Hormuz was spiking, and the SAM sites were put on higher alert. And yeah, this jet walked into the firing arc of a SAM site, and the SAM crew blasted it. Very much
I
it's
think
very
that-
similar to
Yeah,
the
what I think is they mistook it for a B1 Lancer.
possibly, but how they would do that, I don't know. I think honestly, I think it's panic. Yeah, I mean, in the case of the Soviet Union's shoot down of the Korean flight in the 1980s, it was very much a similar situation in the sense that there were U.S. military and U.S. surveillance operations going on illegally inside their airspace, but they shot at the wrong plane.
Yeah.
Um, and I think
the
that's
problem
what's
with
happened
stealth
here.
assets. That's another problem with stealth assets, because you can't really make out what the fuck it is, and you're trying to find and shoot it down. As soon as you got something, you're gonna launch a missile at it.
Yeah,
Not
the fact that Iran's
remembering
denying it is
yeah, that's a stupid thing. They shouldn't do that. But yeah,
like, and of all the aircraft it could have shot down, it shot down a Ukrainian aircraft.
Mm.
I think a
And-
Russian civilian died as well.
Yeah, look,
Which
it's not going to go well for them. Like,
oof.
in some weird way, it might even help de-escalate the situation because that might cool a few heels between Iran and Russia in terms of friendly collaboration.
The crash site itself of the airplane has, according to a report I saw on the live map thing, I'll have to link it in the thing. It says the crash site has been stripped clean. There's no cordoning off of the area and there's no signs of any investigation happening.
Of course
No.
not.
Yeah. So
Well, what happened there was the fucking the Cotswolds, the fucking political arm of the fucking Iranian military came in, took the black box, and fucking went home.
Yeah.
No survivors, if I remember correctly.
No, the Iranians have the black boxes. It's
Yeah,
almost certain of
They
that.
they grabbed the black box, and what happened to the scrap? They didn't fucking care.
Nope. And that's the basic fact. As long
It's
as
a
we don't
fucking-
have the black
yeah.
boxes,
We can't
won't know
really
what.
prove it,
so it's
even with
just,
video.
So it's just trying to do what damage control they can, even
They
though
can.
I'm not convinced that they haven't destroyed them, honestly.
Okay. Because
I would.
there's a weird aspect to what's going on with this potential World War III in that we have live video updates and live tweeting of what's happening, and any attempt at like sneaky subterfuge is undone because someone on the ground has a smartphone and they take a photo of it. So it's like what before we were going live a couple of days ago, I was actually in a meeting with a few other leftists actually, and just before that meeting started, I was scrolling through all of the different updates, and one of them was about an earthquake in Iran.
Oh, that like
Yeah,
two. I made jokes about this already. That we're just recreating the plot to Armor 3 in reverse.
Shit.
Plot to Armor
Wait,
3. is
A
ridiculous.
magnitude
It didn't-
4.7 and a magnitude 4.5.
Yeah. America has an earthquake machine. You see.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
One near Baghdad and one across the thing from Kuwait.
Yeah. So my question.
Although, good question. What the fuck actually happened there?
Yeah. What news source is actually credible? How do we know any news is
Because every fucking article I read, even from like high tier news sources, put earthquakes in quotation marks. Didn't really elaborate on why they did that.
I
mean, underground nuclear test by the Iranians, maybe.
That wouldn't
Possibility.
cause that would never cause an earthquake of that
No,
magnitude.
it wouldn't. Mind you, underground tests of nuclear devices are usually pretty useful, mainly because you don't have a restriction on them. Hey, is it a coincidence that I know a lot about nuclear weapons? I don't know. Maybe it is.
Settle down. You are
know,
the
but, like, even
reincarnation of Jay Possider, aren't you? Aren't you?
Thing is, like, even if you set out the fucking Tsar bomber underground, it would not cause an earthquake of that magnitude.
No, it wouldn't. But it would cause a bit of a shake. Even so,
Yeah, a bit of a shake of like magnitude 3, but never 4.
Yeah, especially like a 4.5.
Yeah, you'd have to fucking set off the entire fucking Russian nuclear arsenal at the same point.
you know, I'd
Real
pay
heat,
good
man.
money for that.
You see, the trouble I have just locally, if you will, is that all of the crazy people are trying to talk about it on the Facebook group that's about where I live. I don't want to accidentally dog myself, but it's like, it's like,
Everybody knows what city you already live in.
I want to at least try to not reveal it, but it's like name of town soapbox where you can have your say essentially, but it's full of like chemtrail ambulance chasing greens of
Oh, that
of
always.
yeah. What they're saying on there
That's
right
what
now,
happens in regional Victoria.
yeah, what they're saying on there right now is that because the Russians knew that the plane was going to get shot down and that a Russian citizen was on there, so they activated their earthquake machine and aimed it at Iran.
You know, the thing is, unironically, the Americans are much more likely to have a device like that because the CIA in the 70s actually did research into these sorts of things.
Oh
They
my God.
actually made efforts
The
to
CIA
create an actual literal weather machine because they wanted to see whether they could conjure up a typhoon to destroy enemy armies in Vietnam.
the CIA has done a lot of things that pales in comparison to what a conspiracy theorist can think of.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
What the-
Okay. Wanna know,
the
given
CIA
present
could
company in this call,
What was that?
I
sorry?
want to talk about something. Given present company in this call, I really want to talk about something. So, but continue your thought, TK.
It's like I reckon just a quick aside. All of the conspiracy theorists saying, "Oh, the CIA is doing this, the CIA is doing that." They're part of the conspiracy to distract people from what the CIA is actually doing, which is 10 times worse. But yeah, go ahead, Pac-Man.
There was a project by the United States Air Force and the CIA back in the old days, back in the good old days, when we scared the shit out of them. And it was for a method of demoralizing enemy forces in the field, in order to reduce their combat effectiveness by undermining their ability to perform their duties. It was
Is this
done
about the
by.
gay bomb?
It is the gay bomb. Yes.
It's about the gay bomb.
Oh my
The CIA,
Elon.
the CIA and the U.S. Air Force experimented in pheromones and hormones and means of distribution in order to work out a way to turn all the soldiers on the battlefield horrifically gay, like so gay that they are literally tearing each other's clothes off the moment they can in
Oh
order
my
to reduce their ability to fight. It's actually a thing. The fucking gay bomb.
fucking
It's
If I
real.
remember
settle down,
correctly-
Alex Jones.
If I remember correctly, the conclusion they came to was that somewhere along the lines of, regrettably, human impulse control is a little too strong for that. Like,
Regrettably, it's a little too
Oh,
strong.
I could talk about that.
oh yeah, they
Okay.
look. The kind of shit that the CIA has tried to, and in some cases actively pulled, like they fucking try out nerve agents on fucking U.S. citizens on U.S. soil.
Throwback to introducing crack into black neighborhoods.
Yeah,
Um,
the CIA
throwback to
is
proposing to
pretty
nuke.
typically the worst.
Throwback to what was it? They wanted to nuke. It was Miami or Chicago, and then blame it on Castro to, like, say we'll go to war with Cuba.
Yeah.
Well, that's actually a real thing. Robert McNamara presented like this is the conspiracy theory
Oh, I
which
know
I
his name.
happen to buy into, as to why 9/11 is sus as fuck, is because it's eerily similar to the plans that Robert McNamara put forward. Like they were going to have Cuban refugees and Cuban infiltrators hijack U.S. airliners and crash them into major civilian targets and set off bombs and do all that and
I-
use that as a justification to invade Cuba.
Personally, I don't think that the U.S. Authorities were directly involved in the planning and execution, but like
No.
it's pretty obvious that they were warned
DB
and they didn't do anything.
DB
Like,
Cooper was in
that's a
fact
fact.
a Cuban exile hired by the CIA to crash the plane and then to blame it on Cuba.
Yeah, like
All right. To sort of try to bring it back to Iran, given that the US has done this kind of shit before.
oh, the CIA is 100% active in Iran. Just saying.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
it's one of
100%.
it's
So-
the most active agency in Iran.
So how do we know that any news coming from America about Iran is legit? Like
We don't.
It isn't.
You don't. You have to be critical about it.
You have to check what their sources are.
Like
Mm.
this all kicked off with the assassination of that general, right?
Yeah.
The Soleimani.
I myself personally don't know all that much about him and what he was doing. Can anyone?
No one
I
did.
mean, he was
No one
absolutely
did.
a butcher and a war criminal, but like, who isn't in that part of the fucking world?
True.
Who isn't with
Division of
who
power.
isn't with the title general?
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, Theo, are you being problematic? Check yourself, Westerner. Critical support for ISIS. Have the Sparts taught us nothing?
Remember, guys. Critical support just means support. Stop being a liberal.
Yeah.
No. I'm gonna fight you on that one. I'm gonna fight you on that one, Dipdat, because critical support is literally exactly that. I am supporting you because this is a good thing for the working class and the liberation of this particular thing, but you are also doing bad things, which I am criticizing you for. But that's what it's supposed to mean. What it actually means for Yankees is yeah, you must unironically support genocidal Middle Eastern regimes, otherwise you're a puppet of Western imperialism.
Otherwise you're a CIA plant.
Yeah.
Like, this is the weird thing that you notice about these circles, because a lot of the shit that the CIA has done, and is planning to do, it's fucking ridiculous. We all know it is. There's this innate sense in our like logic, especially among leftists, to be reasonable. The thing is, the CIA is not reasonable,
At
and
all.
yeah. So really, it's honestly more of a question of can they do it, more so than would a state actor do this, because during the drug war in like South America, there were a lot of incidents where Green Berets, CIA agents, and the FBI shot at each other in skirmishes. That's the state of the fucking U.S. feds and military special forces.
The Brits had that issue in Northern Ireland as well, where the DUP and the British Army would exchange fire until people realized what the fuck was going on.
Jeez.
No, that was
Um,
just friendly fire.
As Theo
Like,
said,
that we actually had Green Berets busting up known CIA operations.
as
It
Theo
was
said,
fucking yeah.
it's not a question of if they will or anything. It's if they can, because
Yeah.
they'll do it.
Like,
Yeah,
if they can afford it, they'll do it, and they can afford just about anything.
the U.S. military budget is, and like, yeah, that's the cool thing about the U.S. budget is that there is this sort of weird sort of gray zone for the budget, which is like designated special appropriations committee for protection of the environment or some bullshit, right? And what it
Black
actually
Ops.
means
It's Black Ops.
is literally Black Ops. Yeah, it's like
You
this.
funnel money into operations where you don't want to know, well, you don't want the public to know where it goes to, and 9 times
not
out of
only
10,
that.
that's weapon development programs, or fucking, shit where people die that you don't want the public to know that you killed.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Like say, I don't know, a U.S. president. Not you know, not saying anything, but you know.
It's not like EML does not support the theory that President Kennedy was assassinated by the CIA.
EML does not advocate violence.
Like,
Y-
I just think it's a bit suspicious that when the CIA was when the time came to open the files, the president ordered an executive order to keep some of them under lock anyway.
Hmm.
It's a bit strange, you see.
So I've got I I've got a little thing here. It says that it's a real news report and then a satire news report. The real report was that I think it was Trump ordered or has arranged for 3,000 more troops to be funneled into the Middle East, into Kuwait, I think it is. Kuwait, no, is it Kuwait? Into
Kuwait, yes.
Yeah, into Kuwait.
It would be Kuwait.
Yeah. And then there was another article that out of Fort Bragg, I think it was, 700 soldiers have been called up and they're being deployed there. And then the joke article was that said plans to bolster the troops in the Middle East has been undone when 3,700 soldiers develop bone spurs all at the same time. But that got
Yeah.
that got me thinking though. It's like how with such a big such a big machine that is the war machine of the US, is it even possible to fight against it? Like, what can we do to?
We as fucking private citizens with no affiliation.
No, I mean 4 shit posters from around the world doing a stream right now. What can we do against it?
That's literally just a ruder version of what I just said.
Sorry.
Yeah, what can we actually do? Absolutely fucking nothing.
Talk to people we personally know. That's about it.
Yeah,
That's about
the
it.
thing is with these sorts of situations, we're not actually in a position to really
No.
do anything. The only thing we are really in a position to
Stop your relatives from signing up.
yeah, and mass organize with other movements, more liberal movements. You know, when you say liberal, it sort of feels like this disgusting thing on your tongue. You're like, ugh. But you have to deal with more liberal movements, like, you know, like, let's be honest here. I went to a protest yesterday for action on climate change and to hashtag sack Scott Morrison dab.
Yeah, but you're right. We do need to get that, like, recreate that energy that the fucking Vietnam era anti-war
Yeah.
movement had.
That's the idea, because
that was backed by the draft, though, wasn't it? We haven't, because there's lots of memes about the draft
Yes,
coming back
but
in the US.
yeah, but the thing is that attitude of man, fuck this, that isn't directly bound, because a lot of the people who did go to these anti-war protests weren't just people who didn't want to get drafted. It was also, you know, women,
veterans
people who
as well.
didn't go. Yeah, like a shit ton of people who were in Korea were like, yeah, and who protested against the Gulf War and later the invasion of Iraq in the early 2000s. Vietnam vets. Yeah, and who's like a lot of Iraq vets are now standing at these, for the love of God, let's not
Don't
go
do
to
it.
war with Iran. No,
Mhm.
and don't fucking sign up. Like,
So
This is the thing. It's I was gonna sort of think, like, that's really what we have to do. We have to work with hashtag the liberals, and the reason we do is because, let me put it this way: I went to this protest yesterday, and while I was out there having a merry old time, I met up with my union who are out there, the United Workers Union, and I
Uwu.
stood with them. Uwu, indeed. And I stood with them, and we discussed. We were talking about how we had green senators, Sarah Hanson Young, come up and make a big speech. We had all these different big speeches going on. We had an absolutely look. I don't go in for young angry liberals very often. Let's be honest. But this guy, I don't know whether he was an immigrant from a sort of U.S. territory or whether he was actually an American or I don't know. He wasn't an Aussie. He was something else entirely. Maybe English. I don't know. Like one of those English migrants who have that sort of weird sort of accent. Anyway, this guy gave the speech of a fucking lifetime. I'm telling you what. Anyway, point is, ran into Salt, of course. Selling their newspaper as per usual.
Yeah.
The same guy I ran into at the last protest. The
Oh,
same Salt
God.
man. Anyway, I was there, and it look
Back.
liberals, right? Okay, do I need to they are talking about reforms, action, how we need to do this, how we need to do this, how we need to do this, and young millennials making impassioned speeches about the environment and climate change, and it's all so horrible. But I don't want to sound like a boomer, but the truth is, even from their speeches, you got the impression that these, there was some whiff of revolutionary activity, but it wasn't quite there yet. And I'm standing here with my Karl Marx T-shirt on, with "Sharing is Caring" emblazed on it, with my backpack with a giant fucking hammer and sickle right on the. And you want to bet Channel 10, their camera van was near me. They probably got a back shot of me saying, "Ha, you see, it's the communists." But
The
like,
cultural
I
Marxists.
You see,
yeah,
this is the thing that I've found a lot of trouble with, trying to talk to people on a personal basis, is because they're angry and they understand that something's wrong, but you try to explain to them that
What it is.
yeah, there's this overwhelming dread that I found very hard to convince people of otherwise. There's no alternative. There will never be an alternative. That's the attitude people have, and I found it very hard to even get through to them, because the idea of not this is so alien to the average person that it's become
Capitalist realism moment.
yeah, it really is that. I tried sort of. I was. You see, it's not that I don't think they're being sincere. They're trying their little hearts out, okay? I get it. But the boomers do have a point in one sense, where it does honestly sound like this is their organization name, and I quote directly: College Students for Action Against Climate Change.
It's
Okay?
vague.
It's vague. But not only that, it's not movement, it's not organization, it's not party, it's college students. And to me personally, maybe it's just my own integral bias, probably is, but to me, that does reinforce the stereotype of angry teenagers yelling at society without actually fucking doing anything. It's not.
I think there are a lot of things that we need to learn, to start doing. One of them, and this I think is a really, really important thing that we need to actually fucking start doing, right? We need to get out there, and we need to start, explaining these things over and over, because and this is something that the right has, mastered. It's the fact that repetition works.
Mm-hmm.
That I think we're a little too honest. Honestly, we look at these things and we go, well, but we need to be honest. Well, we are honest. Repetition doesn't have to be an insidious thing. If we repetitiously state the facts of what the fuck is so fucked up, and then continue to state this isn't the only way. There is another world is possible. That repetition, that works too, you know? It doesn't just have to be fucking lies that are spouted out until people fucking believe them. Truth, it works with truth as well. You know, we have to, in a sense, give people this. We have to plant that seed and we have to fucking hammer it in
And sow the seed.
and nurture it until people, because people genuinely do no longer believe that it can get better, that it can get better. If we hammer that in, then we've got a chance. That's what we got to do. We got to make people believe that they're not lost, because that's the way most people feel at the moment. They feel fucking lost.
Yeah, absolutely. People are so fucking alienated from themselves and from society and from everything around them, their family, their friends, the things they own, everything, that the world is scary, the world is isolating, and it seems, because capitalist ideology has done so, that it's you versus everyone else. That you are in competition with everyone who is on the same level as you. Not that you can, like, they think that it's to the point where it's conspiratorial, I think. So take 2 people in a factory job or 3 people in a factory job. They may be friendly to each other. They may call each other friend. There's an unconscious knowing or unconscious like feeling that they're in competition with these 2 people to get the next manager position. They're no longer seen as equal playing field, friends, people of the same interest, people of the same like interest group. They're seen as competing forces to meet an end goal, and if they screw you over, if you screw them over, fuck you, I got mine.
Yeah.
It's not just that either. Capitalism likes to present itself as the ultimate meritocracy. But if anything, it's the opposite. It's the ultimate in.
I think that such a thing as a meritocracy is literally impossible, because the very concept is based on like the way the productive forces are competitively organized. Like
even
that's why in fucking feudal systems it wasn't really an idea that existed, because it didn't make sense.
Didn't the guy that popularized meritocracy use it as a joke to poke?
Yeah, it was a fucking, I think it was a fucking one of the early French like utopian socialists that sort of was it Fourier? I don't think it was.
No, it was Michael Dunlop Young in 58.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, like it was poking fun at the very idea that. Well,
please read it, by the way. Please read it. It's a very good sociological work.
Yeah.
I think that's what I'm sort of getting at, though, is meritocracy, like the best man for the job kind of attitude, is what sort of people say that capitalism does. Oh, competition weeds out the weak and leaves only the strong. But genuinely speaking,
no, it weeds out the underprivileged, and
it weeds out the underprivileged. It weeds out the you can only have that sort of system if you have an equal starting. If you have an equal
fundamental
playing field to
contradictions of
start.
capitalism. How do you get more power? By already having power.
Yeah, exactly.
How does one get power? By either like doing non-meritorious things to people that either don't have power or have power already, or have power already.
Yeah.
So since we're starting to talk about power and competency and having the right people in power, I wanted to shift slightly to Trump.
Are we going to talk about the burn, or are we going to talk about?
No, we're gonna talk about like the idea that if you're gonna have a war, you got to have the best people in charge. And I know this is quite a bit of a 180, so we're going to get whiplash by it. But in a recent speech, Donald Trump,
Sundowned?
yes, he appears to be exhibiting symptoms of sundowning. Dip Dab, I think you were the one who wanted to.
Okay, so
Yeah, if you could fill us in
What?
on this.
Sundowning is a term used to describe a side effect of dementia and Alzheimer's. It is used to mean that the person who is the sufferer over the day gets worse throughout the day. So the longer they are awake, the worse they get. We know that Trump sleeps like 3 hours a day, so it gets pretty fucking bad. Like he stated this for years that he sleeps 3 hours a day, which is also fucking terrible for your mental health and could be a leading cause into developing such a condition. He rambles, he stutters, and the generals behind him look absolutely fucking terrified because they don't know what the fuck he's gonna say.
Like, you know what this is? This is also a big problem because other than in the 60s, we don't have an established military cadre in control. Do you know that Nixon tried to nuke Cambodia in a drunken rage, and the only thing that was between him and the literal button was Henry Kissinger? Do you know that?
That's
I
kind
did
of
not know that.
hilarious.
Shit.
He was
Fucking
real.
cuck.
Nixon got
We got
really drunk, and he was like, "We're going to nuke Cambodia," and the only thing that stopped him was that Henry Kissinger knew that bad idea, and you're drunk, but that's because he'd been in that position for decades. He had that semblance of power over the president. Nobody in government like that exists at the moment. If Trump, in a fit of fucking whatever the fuck it is, the man's unstable. Not even like in the liberal, the man's unstable, like the man genuinely, I don't think has all his mental faculties together.
I always thought that the process for launching a nuke was that
no,
the
the
president.
president can unilaterally order it at any point in time.
So
I like
so
old people, but I don't trust them with anything.
So the
Like-
so the generals can't like
No,
refuse.
no. If the president says you nuke this or that, they have to do it. Unilaterally, under any circumstance. On a whim. Right now, he could tell them to nuke an ally, they'd have to do it. And whether they'd actually do it is a different question.
Right.
But
Okay.
by law, they would have to do it. And that is why the fucking US is so dangerous. Even the fucking Soviets, at least needed the fucking before the unilateral order was given, they had needed, I think, at least 2/3 of the cabinet to agree on this policy.
Yeah, it was a case of it's sort of like it's a joke in Doctor Strangelove, like wing attack plan R, but the Soviets really did have that in the sense that unless it was wing attack plan R, that being the Soviet Union has got like 20 minutes left to live because there are nukes on the way, unless it's that situation where they can launch a unilateral strike, any use of Soviet nuclear weapons required a democratic consent to use by the Politburo to use.
Yeah.
So
doesn't have any such fail-safe.
no, that the
Which is
if
why-
the president orders a
Which is
nuclear
exactly
strike,
why, even during the Cold War, the United States was always considered the more volatile nuclear power.
Mm-hmm.
Because yeah, the Soviets were paranoid too because they were in the fucking Cold War, but the Soviets were 100 times less likely to just randomly nuke someone.
So we've got an incompetent, bumbling,
Possibly
Alzheimer's.
senile.
Yeah, who can't even speak properly or nor finish a sentence. Believe me, who has put, if the report is correct, nuclear capable planes in the air and headed towards Iran.
Fear.
Yeah.
It's just
Fear.
So it's just a
Like,
It's a
this is what actually infuriates me about the fucking shit libs, because they're not terrified. You know, we're terrified because the world might be lit on fire by this man. No, they just don't like him of shitty, petty reasons that not actually the reasons that genuinely affect people.
Orange Man bad.
Orange
He's a misogynist.
Bad,
Obama-
yes, Orange Man bad.
Obama was a butcher. Listen,
They
Obama
don't
was
care
a butcher.
why he's bad,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
This is the exact same thing. Obama basically had a fucking Republican social and economic policy.
Obama was
He
a
appeased
butcher.
them. He basically gave them a fucking budget that was verbatim just Bush's budget.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder why they didn't like him anyway. What could it be about Barack Obama that white racists don't like?
Barack Hussein Obama.
Could it be? Now I know this sounds crazy, but could it be that it was because he was black?
Nah.
This is democracy we're talking about.
Now, again though, we have to remember, because I want to make it very clear. Obama, fucking terrible fucking war criminal, but he had his mental faculties.
Yeah.
Trump
Yeah.
likely does not, because I look through his tweets at night, and his night tweets don't have grammatical errors, have punctuation which he doesn't use, and such.
Doesn't sound like him either.
It doesn't read like him, doesn't sound like him. It has a different vocabulary. This man is fucking sundowning. Like, he has something. They canceled the first meeting because it was late in the day. Something's up.
Like, there are these videos of from the fucking 4th of July last year. Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Nah.
And there are points in time of that where the procession is moving on, and he's just sort of standing there staring out into nothingness. He's fucking zoning out.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and again, we're not saying this in a fucking
Orange
like, we're
Man
not saying,
bad.
or even mentally ill people. What we're saying is that callous, evil people, who definitely are beginning to forget not just the cadence of social acceptance, but also, the rules of society, should probably not have the power to launch unilateral nuclear strikes at whoever the fuck they please without any recourse. Like, if Trump fucking, I don't know, busted his ball or something and was like, fuck, like, nuke France or something. And he actually, went through
critical support for this action.
they would have to do it. Like, the generals, maybe they refuse, but they'd be committing a fucking high treason if they did.
We have the
They'd be
precedents.
fucking heroes if they did.
Yeah, we have the precedents of Nixon getting drunk, and only Henry Kissinger could talk him down.
This isn't fucking.
Yeah, we're not talking fantasy here. This is a possibility.
Okay.
And that's
Think
only
about
the one
how-
we actually found out because someone fucking leaked it.
Think about that. Who was the one that was able to talk a president down from nuking someone?
Yeah.
Did you say fucking Henry Kissinger?
Yeah.
Oh boy.
I don't think
I would
Trump
talk-
has a Henry Kissinger in his camp.
It's Soccer Bar.
Aye, we're talking about Henry Kissinger and how he talked down Nixon from nuking Cambodia.
Oh, that's a shame.
I know, right?
We're talking about the fact that the president could, in a case of sleep dementia or something, decide we're gonna do a unilateral
Nuke
strike
France.
now. Yeah,
Yeah.
like
Nuke
not even
France.
in a because by U.S. policy, no one can stop him. if the generals refuse the order, that's high treason technically.
Mhm.
Fun. I'd like to
It's,
think that the U.S. cabinet wouldn't be fucking retarded enough to do it, but they might.
One can hope, but the thing is, the fact
They
that
don't. Want,
the
they
law
also might not want
states
to
that they
face high
have to
treason.
obey. The law states that they have to obey, and added to the fact that the cabinet is intentionally filled with cowards and yes men, doesn't paint a nice picture. Because all the heart people that initially got in, well, they're all out of cabinet because they talked back to the president, and he didn't like that.
Also, they might be fucking like, okay. The worst case scenario, like if they best case scenario deny it, right, and say no. Worst case scenario is they get fucking executed.
And to be fair, they'll die anyway, and it'll be beautiful. And I will be proven right yet again. But
Again,
yet again,
I mean, obviously, one could argue that this is a point in time where the vice president could take control, but I'll be honest with you. I don't think Pence would care. Completely honest with you. The man's a sociopath.
I think
In like
all
the
he cares
literal
about,
terms.
all he cares about is that he can manipulate his president into doing things that he would probably already do that affect
Well-
non-straight people.
well, I don't really think realistically, I don't think the danger really so much as an actual shooting war with the United States and the Islamic Republic of Iran. I think what's
I'm
stake
honestly, I'm
is
not
a,
even talking about this specific instance in Iran, but I'm just pointing out the fact that if the U.S. president decides to get stupid, he could literally nuke U.S. soil by law, or any place in the fucking world.
Dare
And the
be
generals,
stupid.
if they said no, would be committing high treason.
well,
yeah.
anyway, as I was saying, I think likely is a sort of um a sort of escalation of sort of proxy wars between, because each side, Iran and the United States, have their various regional forces that they, by supplying them with
Mm.
weapons and intelligence and various things like that. I think we'll see an escalation of like more sort of sectarian violence in Iraq between Sunnis and Shias, and
Mm.
uh, more stuff along those lines rather than an actual proper
I mean,
war between, these two nation states. Really, I don't think that's particularly likely.
There's got to be people smart enough to know that you don't go to war with Iran because it's
that's
a whole
not the
lot
point,
of
TK.
Oh, okay.
TK, it doesn't matter whether they, know. It's the fact that capitalism necessitates these wars.
Yeah,
It's
it
the
doesn't
natural
matter.
consequence of the sort of market crashes we have, and they obviously they don't actively know that, but they can tell that it's necessary. They might not understand why.
They go. I mean, like, if they were, if that's what they were thinking, TK, they would have left Afghanistan 10 years ago.
You got a good point there, actually.
Like this is something I'd like to weigh in on this particular one, because you don't want to go to war with Iran for another very important. They have cetacean allies, comrade. They have
Oh fuck!
trained killer dolphins.
I was waiting.
That's the thing.
Communist dolphins.
Ex-Soviet trained dolphins, specifically designed to hunt down Navy SEAL divers and attach mines to the bottom of ships. These guys.
Peter, I hope you know that if you ever come into possession of nuclear weapons, I'm going to have to commit sectarian violence on you.
Well, my entire ideology is based around the fact that I will eventually come into possession of nuclear weapons.
Well, my entire ideology is based on the idea that no.
That no.
Yeah.
The end. The
Yeah,
end.
no, I'm just gonna stand in front of capitalism and say no.
So the
Just say no.
there is since we've mentioned the meme of our communist comrade dolphins, there is a sort of anti-war aspect to the trend of memes that are coming out. In that, there's a lot of the memes are debunking the misinformation. One of my favorite ones was like someone's the confused face guy with the question mark saying like, "How did our freedoms get into Iran?" Question face. so things like that. If that's the sort of meme narrative that's coming out of it, I wanted to ask DipDap and now Barbie, like boots on the ground, what's the consensus from the general population about the Iran war in America, the US?
It depends.
Fuck no.
No one's fooled. Like, we know this is gonna be bullshit, basically.
Okay. Soccer. I have a contention though. My mother is 100% sold.
Well, your mom's gay.
I fucking
That's
like.
completely
I knew
anecdotal.
I knew that was fucking coming.
I
Like,
knew it was coming too. I knew it was coming as well. But I'm saying
yeah.
some people are like so sold on it that they will
Yeah,
believe it.
that's
of
because
course they
right.
are. Like, it's fucking America. Like, of course there's gonna be people like that with any bullshit, fucking military adventure. But I think it's pretty. I mean, we've been at war.
Overwhelmingly, yes.
Yeah, we've been fucking in Afghanistan and Iraq for almost as long as I've been alive now. Like, people are like, they've seen this before. Like, they know where this is gonna basically
Go.
lead to if it happens. Like, most people aren't falling for it.
This is the
I
thing
think.
though that I would really like to point out, TipDap especially. We've reached that late of a state of capitalism that the US is now actively commodifying its own propaganda.
Yes.
Like it's something to consume. That
Yes.
they make
I
you
mean, they
pay
were
for it too.
They were doing it in the 80s too, though. It's called
Yeah, like,
fucking
why do you-
the movies. It's called movies. Just movies in general.
Yeah, but now it like even the fucking regular ass fucking soapbox speeches that you think of when you hear the word propaganda, even that's being commodified now.
The army posts memes on Instagram.
Oh, that makes me sick.
Yeah, they do. The army, the US Army memes. It does meme.
When an army recruiter sees like a kid with a 1.5 GPA, like
Yeah,
It's
like
just-
I'm like I'm scrolling through the US Army's fucking Twitter.
What am I even doing with my life? What the fuck is my purpose? Fuck.
This is the thing.
I broke TK. I broke TK.
This is
Also,
the thing
TK.
though. In the end, I think to an extent that does, like, how do I put this? The veil fell. We've been through too many wars in a short enough period of time. Like,
Yeah.
the US used to go through wars in an interval where it started one war,
Ended it.
and then the next generation would be grown up by the time they got involved in the next major invasion.
Mhm.
Like after World War II, which I don't really count because they were pulled into it. But let's say Korea, the 50s, right? The people who were toddlers in the fucking 50s during the Vietnam War, were eligible in the Korean War were eligible for draft by the time the Vietnam War rocked around. And the people who were born after the Vietnam War ended were eligible for draft and not draft, but like were eligible for recruitment after the Vietnam War. By the time the Gulf War rocked around, then the Iraq War, and then we have the outlier. We invaded Afghanistan. And the fucking veil fell. Like ever since the fucking Afghanistan conflict has raged on for as long as it has and has been as pointless as it has.
And more soldiers are seeing it happen, and they're starting to see the
Yeah.
veil fall with them too.
And now we're starting another, less than like while the other one is still going on. We like that feedback loop. It's happened. We're
Um,
done. We're through.
I'm imagining the US as like a child sitting at a table, and the mother is just like, "Now you gotta finish your Venezuela before you have any Iran."
Like this was the cycle for a long, long time. For like during the Cold War. But that was to an extent because the US had a counterbalance that if they became too aggressive and more aggressive, the Soviets would, send more deterrence. So there was an incentive for the US to not
Not
randomly start a war. What's the counterbalance? The big counterbalance to the US right now? China? The Chinese don't care.
But the Chinese probably are like okay with it because the US is continuing to buy their shit.
Yeah. Like, the Russians don't have the money to care.
Who cares? Fucking insurgent groups in the Middle East.
Yeah. Don't get me
Who
wrong, they're
cares?
fucking winning.
Who
but,
cares?
like,
Poor fucking Afghani families that had their families massacred by Americans.
The US has no counterbalance. That is probably the most disastrous effect of the end of the Cold War. The fact that the US can now unilaterally do shit like,
Whatever it wants.
2000, in fucking 2003, I think it was that they went into Iraq the second time. I like to quote one of my favorite German comedians, like after 9/11, we got to take revenge on someone. Yeah, but we don't know. Yeah, who do you want to take revenge on? That's kind of the problem with suicide bombers. Well, we got to take out the people responsible. Yeah, but we don't know where they are. Well, we could invade Iraq. Why? Does Hussein have something to do with it? No, but we know where he is.
Yeah, literally. That's kind of.
We're gonna change the difficulty level.
Like
I-
that's what Bush did. Quoting the same, paraphrasing the same comedian, but I really like this analogy. Bush won, the senior, the old Bush, when he invaded Iraq for the first time. He left Hussein in power deliberately to have, and I quote, an asshole in the closet that you can pull out whenever whenever you need a scapegoat to beat someone up. Right?
Yeah.
And you could just send some fucking carpet bombs over an Iraqi city, and everything will be fine at home again. They tried to
Yeah.
artificially create the counterbalance that they lost with the fucking fall of the Soviets.
Well,
That's
it's hilarious because part of the reason why we were tolerant of Saddam as long as we were was because he was essentially a counter to Iran in the region, basically. Because Saddam waged a quasi genocidal war against the Iranians in the 80s. Like several 100,000 people died in that war.
Oh yeah, there was an
And,
actual deal between the fucking U.S. and the Iraqis. You
and
invade this Shiite theocracy. You topple the government, and the fucking oil fields you take on the border region, you can keep those.
yeah, it's
But
funny.
those fucking Iranians, they fucking fought back. How dare they?
And
Yeah.
one.
It's it's ridiculous because we invade Iraq and we topple the Ba'athist regime there, and then we're just shocked that Iran kind of more or less takes over in Iraq, even though Iraq is also a majority Shia country. Like, if you didn't want Iran to take over Iraq, then you shouldn't have overthrown Saddam. Like, what did you expect was going to happen?
Well, Bush Jr. didn't understand geopolitics very well, I
He
suppose.
doesn't understand a lot of things.
Yeah. and people wanted to go to war. He didn't really get the implications of what would happen, so he just kind of did it. But like, no, but in the first Iran-Iraq war, like the Iran-Iraq war, you know, the war was over, and there's evidence to suggest that the Americans might have actually insinuated to Hussein that he could occupy Kuwait, and they just changed their mind afterwards. Like, what did Hussein do differently in Kuwait than he did in Iran? No, nothing. He just turned around.
Yeah, exactly. The comedian said that. Exactly that. You just turn around. You like, well, I can't get the Iranian ones because the Iranian military is too strong. They beat me, so I'm gonna turn around and go after this country that doesn't have it. The only problem is the Kuwaiti oil fields belong to the Americans.
Yeah, that was the exact problem. That's
God, fucking
There's like Bush was incompetent. We know Bush was incompetent. Like if you've read the things he said, you know he's fucking like got brain
You're
rot.
talking about the W
Bushisms.
here, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
W. Bushisms are the funniest shit. But
Yeah.
most of our imports come from overseas, boys. Didn't you know?
the same thing can be said for Trump doubly so.
Oh yeah.
And it
I pose to you that Trump is literally just an evolved W.
he's
Bush.
George W.
Just an
Bush.
evolved form of that phenomenon.
He's George W. Bush with less sleep.
It's the same joke, and it's just not funny.
With
at
less
all.
inhibitions, I think is the right.
Trump and Bush are definitely results of what I call the great retardening of the Republican Party. I think
it still baffles me.
Case to be made that kind of started with Reagan, that whole movement that I just mentioned, but I don't know. I kind of feel like Bush the second was kind of really the first.
It's the first really successful one because, well,
the one where it was so obvious with Bush.
Yeah.
Because Reagan, as terrible as he was, like Reagan was at least
Reagan was fucking evil, but
like
he
Reagan could at
had
least speak
charisma.
English.
He had charisma. We've thrown that out of the window. I mean, I know we don't like to talk about it, but Trump was basically elected on a ticket of, I'm very rude. No one is as rude as me.
I am not the other person.
Yeah. That, and he said shit he wasn't supposed to. He was
Mhm.
rude. He was elected because he was transgressive. And, well,
Funny.
people were fucking apathetic. You know, for the past 10 to 15 years, they had switched between basically the same fucking actual fucking policies with just a different mask. What's the actual intrinsic difference between Bill Clinton and George W. Bush? Actually, let's go further than that. What's the intrinsic difference internally and externally policy-wise between both Bush, Bill Clinton, and Obama? Null.
Like the only difference is a few social policies.
Makeup. It's exactly what I said.
Mm-hmm. It's
fucking,
makeup. It's PR.
Yeah. It appeals to makeup for the two different camps of the country, really.
Mm-hmm.
Where Obama's token social policies were makeup for liberal shit libs with fucking savior complexes about minorities. It was for the Bushes and to an extent now Trump. It is, well, less Trump, but to an extent it was makeup for the closet, like, hardline Christian racists who didn't like to admit the fact that they were racists even to themselves, and they had someone that for 8 years told them, no, you guys are fine. You're wonderful people. You're great. You're amazing. That's really what it is. It's fucking circle jerk. Well, Trump did what people like found so offensive was that he just took the makeup away and just stood there in front of us, quasi naked.
Made a series of bra moments.
There was an aspect
That is-
that we, if to try to shift the conversation slightly again. So we touched on it earlier before, with a quick explanation of what critical support is. But what I see on Left Book is a lot of people not understanding or getting confused about people saying, for example, someone will say no war with Iran, and then they'll say, how dare you support Iran? They attack and kill our communist comrades. To which the person replies, no, I don't support Iran. So what's the nuance here? Like, can we uncritically not support the US in the
right.
fight? In
I hate these fucking stupid.
That's not a
just
question,
needlessly
TK.
pedantic
That's not a
arguments about
question.
how we phrase things.
TK, do you oppose the war in Afghanistan?
Yes.
Do you support the Taliban?
No.
What's the difference here?
Support the Iranian and the American proletariat. Don't support the governments. They're both fucking butchers.
Support ISIS against U.S. imperialism.
Okay,
Yes, thank you.
Okay, Italian Marxist-Leninist Party.
When the
no,
when
you
the fucking ICL said that, I was like, oh my god.
Like, okay, you see, we need to transcend that now. Now we have to critically defend U.S. imperialism against ISIS support or something. I don't know. That's the evolution here.
If
We have to uncritically support fucking the left wing, the furthest left wing of the Democrats or some bullshit. I don't know. I don't really buy most critical support stuff because most people who say critical support aren't very critical about it.
It's a dog whistle. I think
It is a dog whistle. Yes, absolutely it is.
like it's like when people say racist things without wanting to acknowledge the fact that they are racist to other people. So it's like it's the I'm not racist but of political statements.
especially when Richard Spencer is trying to support Iran against US imperialism.
Here's the thing. You know how the right wingers on like fucking chuds on Twitter have like all a pronoun and bio? I have a new one that we can use. Fucking flag and bio. Flag and bio. Eat my ass. Get off that shit.
Oh yeah, that's flagheads is what people call those people. Yeah.
Flag and bio. Fucking eat my ass.
I
No,
think I've
none
called
of
them
that shit.
flag cabbages before when I was really tired.
I have a lot of insults on Twitter. Like the one that I made the host just go on like a rant because I called him a state brutonist.
You are a legend.
You're
Seb,
saying
I just
all
want
this-
that
I
to
still
be put out
wanna I still wanna call an American monarchist a Habsburger because I can't wait to use it, like actually use it.
there.
You're saying all this anti-flag stuff as I stare at my flag collection.
Okay,
I mean TK.
what flags are they, TK?
Yeah, take what flags. Which ones?
There's a big love heart flag, a rainbow flag,
Yeah,
a syndicus
TK.
flag, Soviet Union
TK.
flag, Yugoslavian flag.
You'd have a point with that if you had hanging, say, oh, that's a North Korean flag, an Iranian flag, a Syrian flag, like all these fucking batshit fascist-adjacent regimes that just are perpendicularly opposed to U.S. interests, and that's why the fucking tankies.
They take a Kautsky opinion on fucking war. They take a fucking Kautsky line.
It's just like Kautsky, they're fucking...
Renegades. Fucking idiots.
Like, I keep wanting to use the very common German insult of Kauz, which actually does mean old man, but the reason it became an insult
It's
is because
Kautsky.
of Kautsky. It's an actual insult we still use in Austria.
Yeah, I mean,
Like when someone's being a contrarian and just being a fucking dipshit who doesn't understand any of the things they're talking about, we call him a Kauz. Like
so
even if you're not a leftist, that's just a thing here.
I mean, I've started calling a lot of MLs that take these lines, and anyone that take these lines as well, but it's mostly MLs. They're all Kautskyites. They're all fucking Kautskyites.
Yeah.
I think a lot of that you see with people online, especially from MLs, I think a lot of it stems from a certain desperation to sort of have anything to
An
latch
ally.
on to, anything to root for in the world at this point in time, you know?
In these circles, this is an incredibly lukewarm take, but this is because the specific tenets that they follow were created as a sort of thought defense and upholding and what's the word, defense of the Soviet Union. Now that the Soviet Union doesn't exist anymore, it's a purposeless ideology.
And must be applied to anything that does not defend U.S. interests.
Yeah. And, well, it obviously doesn't fucking work because this is a big problem that we all have, I think, on the left, but MLs just fucking die from it, is that they cannot get out of the Cold War. Like, we
They are
constantly sorry, that was Freudian. Dip back into... sorry there. Dip back into fucking... like Cold War thinking, where we're trying to look for good guys in these conflicts, where there are none.
I think another thing is that they're trying to latch on to anything.
That's what I
But
said,
like,
yeah.
the thing is, this
Yeah.
isn't Vietnam. You know, in Vietnam, it was pretty obvious that the fucking probably the ones that weren't napalming and massacring villages were probably the good guys in this situation. We don't have that in Afghanistan. We don't have that in Iraq. We're not going to have that in Iran because the Taliban are butchers. The fucking Baathists were butchers, and the Iranian regime also butchers. It's just
Which clique of butchers will you support today?
it's just two naked assholes mud wrestling. That's all it is.
Yeah.
We don't have to like them.
It seems we may have said all we can about the current Iranian conflict and everything surrounding it. Perhaps that might be a good point to wrap up this special, unless people have got any last thoughts on the Iran war.
Fuck the Iranian government. Fuck the U.S. government. Only support the proletariat. Fucking stop being fucking Kautskyites. Stop trying to be like support Germany in World War I bullshit. Eat my ass.
Yeah, I think that Diptav made a pretty good point there. Like during the First World War, you think you're following in the tradition of the Bolsheviks. No.
Opposite.
No.
Opposite.
Like during the First World War, there were certain Russian members of the Russian Social Democratic Labour Party who were like, "Oh yeah, you see, we're gonna support Germany in this because they're against the Tsar," and to which most people of the SR were like, "What the fuck is wrong with you?" No.
And there's the other part of it is that these people have like a what in the piece that Lenin talks about revolutionary defeatism, they take the line that Trotsky took at the time, which was they think it means desiring only the loss of your government and the victory of the other,
Yeah.
not that it means the loss of both governments and the victory of both proletariats.
Yeah. And before you try and think
Well,
you're real smart by saying,
you gotta remember, Dip Dap. The Imperial Germany didn't have pretty epic and based Allah Bashar Surya meme.
I
1914.
mean, they
Yeah,
did.
Bashar.
Like, there literally were jokes about Willy and his big mustache. But like, before you come out of the fucking bushworks and say that, oh yeah, you see, but Lenin accepted money from the Germans, yes, which to an extent he then used to fight them in Poland.
Yeah.
Like,
Without Germany, we are doomed. Lenin talking about a revolution in Germany.
yeah, not the fucking German Empire. You
Yeah.
fucking idiots.
Listen to an audiobook. If you can't read, listen to an audiobook. Because you're all fucking illiterate.
Or at least listen to someone that tries to explain it to you.
Yes, please.
Any last words or even plugs where we should subscribe to before we wrap this thing up?
Yep, subscribe to the official Twitter account of the Vatican.
Why?
I don't know, funny meme.
Are you a fucking tradcath?
Oh my god. We're going off the rails. I'm assuming direct control. Alright, I want to remind everyone to like and subscribe to stay up to date with everything Eastern Marshlands. Check out the description because there's a donate button. There's also a t-shirt at Ancom Aesthetic Ancom store. I always get that mixed up. But I want to give a special thanks to Dip Dap, Pac-Man, Theo, and for Barbie for joining us. I want to say thank you to everyone for joining us into the chat. And hopefully we will be back in 1 week's time for another evening with comrades. Good night, everybody.
See you.